This is Top of Mind, the Dr. Patrick Slowinski Show.
All right, welcome everybody to a special edition of Top of Mind. I'm again Patrick Slowinski, and I'm your host for this show. Producer Victor's out today, and I am here with a wonderful guest from Israel. And she and I met at Liberty University, where she is a fellow, a visiting professor at the Liberty University. This is Dr. Moodrick-Even Khen, and she's a senior lecturer of public international law at Ariel University in Israel and chair of the Ariel University Center for the Research and Study of Genocide. And she's also been an academic advisor on the Holocaust, genocide, and crimes against humanity for the Israeli delegation to the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. She specializes in various fields of international law, which is important for our conversation today, including international criminal law, genocide and law, international human rights law, and international humanitarian law. She has enjoyed her time so far at Liberty, so I'm going to let her talk about that. She has tremendous research on all sorts of atrocities, unfortunately, in criminal histories and genocides in different parts of the world, and not only what has happened to the Jewish people in the past. So Dr. Hilly Moodrick-Even Khen, Hilly, welcome to the program.
Exactly. Thank you.
Do you want to add anything that I might have missed from your bio before we get started?
No, just that I'm here in Liberty as a Fulbright scholar in residence, and it's a great experience, and I think you said it all. So
that's right. And as a former U.S. Department of State official, senior official, I should remember the Fulbright program, which is the Department of State program. Well, that's quite an honor, and it's a very competitive program. So congratulations to you for. Did you pick Liberty on purpose?
Yes, because I have established a collaboration with Liberty and specifically with the Helm School of Government and also the Law School at Liberty almost 4 years ago, I think, in 2021. Liberty students helped establish the databases for the research center that I established back then. So the collaboration has developed throughout the years. I visited the university two times before this visit, and therefore it was quite natural that I choose this university. And,
were you in shock at all, or had you been in the United States before?
No, I've been many times in the United States. Also,
but Lynchburg is
here.
Different, right? There are mountains. Yeah. It's not that many people.
Right. Actually, it's very nice. It's a calming experience. The beautiful view of the Blue Ridge Mountains everywhere you go, and the community is so supportive, and we share the same values. And I almost feel like I don't miss home, although I do, especially in these moments that we're going to talk about.
Of course, and Liberty is I'm sure very grateful to have you as a Fulbright scholar at Liberty for the time that you're there. I'm sure students have many questions for you.
Yes, they do.
You talked about a calming effect from Liberty. It's a calm place. Let's talk about the possibility to have some calm in your home in the Middle East and in Israel and in Gaza and in the West Bank. Talk about what's going on there with the neighbors. I want to start with the very first part of showing a short video, what happened this week and your reaction to when the news was announced that the hostages might finally be coming home.
Now is the Israeli government briefing live.
At this point, standing defiant even when people doubted the prime minister could do it, and the enormous pressure he faced at home and internationally. Prime Minister Netanyahu is on the brink of fulfilling a moral, human, and Jewish obligation of bringing the innocent hostages back home. The hostages who were brutally taken by uncivilized people in Gaza, led by terror organizations that have nothing but hatred towards Jews, Israelis, the Jewish state, and Western civilization.
All right, well, I wanted to get your reaction. That was the news coming out of Israel, when it was looking like it was getting close to the hostages finally being released. What was your immediate reaction?
It was so surprising because I must say that the day before was October 7th, and we were mourning, and we had we had ceremonies, and there were sympathies all over. I mean, in Liberty, there was a publication of sympathy with Israel. We were really feeling this, hard feeling of the second sad anniversary for this terrible event. And then the other day, the deal just broke out. It was so surprising. It was nothing like it was before, because there were various deals before, but we had information about them before, and we knew, and it was like gradual process every time. Not to mention the fact that there were, the hostages were released, I don't know, maybe a few were released, or 10 people were released. Nothing like that. That all the hostages are released. So it was a real surprise, and the best surprise we could have had. Not to mention that, if you think about it, the hostages came back on the evening of the holiday of Simchat Torah, the end of reading the Bible and beginning again in Israel, and which was the day that they were actually kidnapped. So isn't this providence, I must say?
Well, I've been reading, as a Christian, I read the Bible, and I read both the Old Testament and the New Testament. And I'm in Deuteronomy right now. And I just got through Numbers, and listening to what Moses gave the Levites, and then he talked about how all the holidays should be instituted and what the symbolism is. And so Christians share that. I wanted to talk to you to tap into your expertise, though, on the Israeli side, of the Jewish side of the word genocide. You hear it thrown out a lot. Lately, in some of the more liberal press, blaming the IDF and Netanyahu, and accusing them of the crime of genocide against the people living in Gaza and the West Bank. But you also have talked about the Israeli experience and what happened on October 7th, 2 years ago. So if you could share a little bit about the term genocide and what the Israeli people and the Jewish people felt happened to them again on October 7th, 2 years ago.
Yes. The term genocide was coined by the Jewish Polish lawyer Raphael Lemkin after the Second World War. And he was also influenced by the Armenian genocide that took place in the First World War. But the Second World War was has driven him to be involved politically, and to convince the UN to be part of the process in which the UN finally accepted a genocide convention. I mean, a convention that prohibits genocide, that criminalizes this crime, and that puts an obligation on states to try to eliminate it. And the definition and genocide means the side, of course, in Latin means killing, and geno is the nation, and so. And therefore, the Genocide Convention accepted the idea that genocide is a crime against groups. It's the elimination of a group. It's not a crime against individuals. And it's a crime that intends to eliminate a group where the perpetrator must have a specific intent to eliminate a group. It's not just a criminal intent to commit a crime against an individual, the hatred of an individual, but the hatred of a national, an ethnic, a religious group or racial group. And this is exactly what happened to the Jews in October 7. Of course, it first happened to them in the Holocaust. That was the prototype of genocide. But then again, in October 7, when Hamas militants came with now what was found specific instructions given by their leader, Sinwar, to kill and to kidnap and to torture every Jew, every Israeli. And they indeed acted out on it. This is what they did. Then the Jews, the Israelis, actually felt as if they were experiencing a second Holocaust. And this is not an exaggeration. Some were feeling also helpless because the Israeli government didn't know about it. Nobody knew about it. We know about this failure. So they were also feeling helpless. And that was also reminiscent of what happened in the Holocaust, where the Jewish people didn't have any state to defend them. But it's not only that, it's how they were treated, inhumanely. and the fact that they were just the object of this hatred as a group. So this is exactly the definition of genocide.
So I guess the question is, in the past, we'll get to President Trump in a second, his different approach to the situation. Of course, he with the prime minister has been very supportive of Israel, even in his first term. He's made no bones about it, but he's also tried to find peace. He worked with his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who's also Jewish, and really created something amazing called the Abraham Accords. And so we'll talk about that in a second. But you do have the arguments out there that Israel had every right to defend itself in the beginning, but then they've taken it too far. And so what do you say as a professor of someone who studied this? What is your answer to that Israel and the IDF in particular has just used this opportunity to wipe out the people who live there in Gaza?
Well, it's very complicated, but I can say that it's actually the opposite, because we cannot forget that Israel and the IDF have been fighting and are always fighting terrorists, and terrorists are abusing very cynically every law of war. They are using human shields. They are hiding within the civilian population, and they do it in purpose for two purposes. Either that perhaps the military that is fighting against them, the military of a state that abides by international law, would be forced to, what we say, abort mission, because they would, the military would see the eventual consequences and would then guess that there would be too many casualties, and therefore they would just not be able to operate that mission. Or they would do another thing, which is also beneficial for the terrorists in their mind. They would go and they would still operate according to their orders, and they would cause these vast casualties. And the terrorist organization would actually be happy about it, because then it could get the international condemnation for that state. And that is exactly what they're doing. And in contrast to that, the IDF has developed so many special methods for evacuation of civilian population, for warning. Did you hear about roof knocking? Do you know what roof knocking means?
No.
It means that a pilot that intends to drop a bomb on a place where he knows that there are combatants, there are militants, sorry, not combatants, because combatant is the official word of what we call a legitimate soldier. So he knows that there are militants, but he also knows that there are civilians there. Then he would drop a lighter bomb just to warn the people there that they could run away, that they could escape, and then he would drop the heavier bomb. This is something that was never known. And there are many methods and many ways in which the Israeli army is known for trying to diminish the casualties and not to cause excessive suffering. But in every war there is suffering, and especially when you fight against terrorists. So I couldn't agree with those saying that the Israeli army just took the opportunity to wipe out the Palestinian people. This is not at all their intention.
Right. And the other argument has always been that Hamas is really the issue, right? That there are probably good people in Gaza who have been convinced that Jews must be killed, that they're the enemy. And we've seen all sorts of people who are willing to look at it, have seen the programs of their school teaching in the area of Gaza, where they have songs and cartoons about killing Jewish people all the time. And these younger people grow up thinking the most incredibly horrible things about the Jewish people and how they must be killed, otherwise they will get killed. And it's their duty, a religious duty even, to kill Jewish people. So that's why you had reactions from people celebrating on October 8th, the deaths of over 1,000 Jewish people murdered in a genocide attempt. But you had these people that are living in Gaza and other parts of the world celebrating those deaths. And I thought, This is a place where it has endured war for so long that people's emotions are so high. But then you had the same thing, Hilly, with Charlie Kirk's death. You had people celebrating a man who was killed in front of the whole world, murdered in front of the whole world. And I as a Christian, I don't lose faith, but it hurts me to my soul when I see people celebrating the death of other people. You also have to understand the Hamas in all of their documents, if people will read them, they exist in English. Their mission is to eliminate, to kill every Jewish person they can and destroy the Jewish state. That's their mission. That's what Hamas tells everybody. But so many people are unwilling to accept that. They get behind the argument that, oh, there are wonderful people living in Gaza and Hamas is just one small group. So tell us about what really the situation with Hamas and the people living in Gaza really is.
Yes, Hamas has tremendous control. And I could add to what you said about textbooks, school children textbooks, that in Hamas tunnels, a translation to Arabic of Hitler's Mein Kampf was discovered. So what do we have to say more about incitement if this is not sufficient? And Hamas is not at all a small organization. It has effective control in Gaza. The Palestinian Authority, unfortunately, not that they do not support this kind of incitement, but Hamas is even stronger, and the Palestinian Authority does not have any effective control in Gaza. It's Hamas that had at least the effective control. And yes, I think that education is a core point that you mentioned, and I wish that in President Trump's 20 points for peace, which are very good points, but I was very sorry that education was missing there. I think it's a core point. I think that it is the basis for any dialogue, for any attempt to rehabilitate the relationship between the nations. And I wish that we could develop some kind of a system that would be able to eradicate hatred. And I believe that it is possible through education, but the question is if there is willingness to collaborate on that on the other side.
And people forget the only real democracy in many people's minds. There are some states in the Middle East that do give their citizens more rights, but Israel is the one beacon of high tolerance for different lifestyles, high tolerance for different beliefs, a very high tolerance for liberal thinking. And if you did not have Israel, you would not even have that one, and people don't understand that. So you mentioned a little bit about President Trump and his 20 points. So I want to show our next video here is when he goes to the Knesset, and we'll talk about that in that historical meeting that he had speaking to the Knesset.
This is not only the end of a war, this is the end of an age of terror and death and the beginning of the age of faith and hope and of God. It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. I believe that so strongly.
All right. And interesting that President Trump, he talked about God in that clip. And then later on, he talked about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And what were the reactions to President Trump's speech in the Knesset? We had a couple members of the Knesset who stood up and yelled out things. They were the opposition, I believe, right? So why don't you give us a little
Arabic? Yeah,
they were Arab leaders in the.
Yeah,
people don't even understand that you can be that there are Muslims, Arabs in the Israeli government. There are Arabs and Muslims.
Not in the government, in the parliament.
Right, in the parliament, excuse me. Right. We would say government in the United States, but you're right, in the parliament, and that they also do military service.
No, they don't do. So I mean, Muslims don't usually for security reasons, but yeah, and Christians do, and yes,
maybe they are Arabic Christians, but they have the possibility to do all sorts of things in Israel, to even be in the parliament.
Right.
So talk to us a little bit about your reaction watching President Trump and his speech at the Knesset.
Yeah, I think it was very moving. It was he had many great ideas in it, and these are the ideas that are also in his 20 points. And also, I thought that the way that he talked about his concept of peace through strength is very important, because I think that had Iran not been capitulated in a way in this, military operation, the 12 days war that took place, or armed conflict that took place in June, the joint operation of Israel and the U.S., and had Iran stayed with his nuclear power, then I believe that all of these Arab states that are now collaborating with this peace process would have not dared to defy Iran. And so the idea that you should be strong in order to achieve peace, at least in this region, at least when you're dealing with organizations as Hamas and states that supported Iran, this is very crucial. And probably it would have been achieved had this operation and other things that happened in the region, such as the downfall of the Syrian regime, of Bashar al-Assad's regime, the capitulation of Hezbollah, all of these things. I'm sure that they actually promoted this the success, or at least we can't say it's success, but at least it's the beginning of the success of this process.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you in a second how it's different, but I want to also show you the president going on to Egypt, and then your thoughts on the international support in addition to, Israel and the United States. But then to tell us also what you think about the level of the international support and if peace really has a chance because of that level.
This is the day that people across the region and around the world have been working, striving, hoping, and praying for. They have done things over the last month that I think were really unthinkable. Nobody thought this could happen. With the historic agreement we've just signed, those prayers of millions have finally been answered. As you know, the hostages have been returned, and further work goes on having to do with the, sadly to say, bodies. Together we've achieved what everybody said was impossible. At long last, we have peace in the Middle East, and it's a very simple expression, peace in the Middle East, and we've heard it for many years, but nobody thought it could ever get there, and now we're there. I want to congratulate everybody.
The president, of course, is manifesting his hope, for his long-held hope for peace, and speaking as if it's there. People will honestly, have to think and say, well, a lot of things still have to happen for peace to be durable, what we say, or long-lasting. So your thoughts on all of the countries that came together to support President Trump in his efforts to create peace, and do you think that is going to give this chance? People were saying, historians were saying, there's never been a chance like this that has been so organized and so effective. And as an American, I'm very proud of our president for trying to, not only in Israel and in Gaza to find peace, but peace everywhere he can.
Right, in Ukraine and Russia.
So what is the Israeli reaction to the visit to Egypt and that the optics of all those international leaders coming to help?
There is great hope. I'm sure that I'm not in Israel now, but of course I hear the media and I see the people's reactions. Technology allows for all of that, as we're doing our conversation now, and I feel there is great hope, and maybe it also puts a focus on civil society, and there are less divisions now, because maybe you knew that before October 7 we had great divisions. They are still there, but I think they have somehow been compromised in the last couple of days. They will get back, but as for now, I think we're kind of united in this hope that these amazing coalition of these Arab states will actually bring about this fascinating ideas that are in the 20 points. I'm sure that each state has its own agenda and its own interests, and the way that they are expecting to receive benefits, economic benefits or other benefits, but it is for a good purpose right now. So I would ignore that, I don't think this is something problematic.
No, I think you're right. And speak to us a little bit about the Arab support, which is historical too. Without the key players of the Arab nations coming together, this never would have happened, correct?
Exactly, because we always thought, when there were other suggestions, that the UN would be involved. As an international lawyer, I must say that any hope for the UN to do anything, I'm really sorry to say, is delusional. And we know that the UN does not have the capacities to enforce any strong peace accord. It didn't succeed in that wherever it was. And so it is only the states in the region that also, some of them have very controversial relations with Hamas. Egypt is not very happy with Hamas at all. So I think they find it as an opportunity to have Hamas less powerful, or maybe even to lose its power at all. And so I think that everything like that just contributes to this achievement.
But you also touched on something very important, and that was the 12-day war, armed conflict, the conflict between the United States and Israel, which set the scene to kind of neutralize or marginalize Iran. So tell me about that, putting those two things together. The Arab support plus marginalizing and isolating Iran's influence.
Yes, because most of the Arabs that are now supporting this plan or this peace process have been fearing Iran, and they, as I said, I think they would have not defied Iran. They would have not stood against it, and now, when Iran does not have its power, and President Trump even hopes that maybe he could get Iran to the table of negotiations, and we all hope for that too. So I think this was a major, this was like something that actually made everything possible. It was a major factor to make this possible, to facilitate.
Yeah. I agree. I think things just lined up, and maybe you can say, like you did before, it's providence or God's hand is in it. But now the hard work is really going to begin, and making sure that a terrorist organization doesn't control those areas in Gaza and the West Bank is really important. What is your prognosis, doctor, for that, professor, for that? What is your prognosis for? We have the document signed, but how do we stop a terrorist organization from gaining power again?
Yes, that would be a major challenge. President Trump said that it should be a challenge that is integrated with the rebuilding of Gaza. And I think there's a point there, because maybe if the rebuilding process, and this is, as he said, this is something that we know how to do. Like, this is not our major problem, I heard him say. So maybe if this succeeds and people do see a good horizon, the civilian population, maybe they would oppose going back to militarization of the society, and would try to neglect hatred and hope for their own better future if this succeeds. Well, I cannot delude myself that this would actually be the case, but we still have hope. And yes, it is very important for Israel, in fact. Israel still keeps its right to remain in what we call a perimeter, and then to keep an eye on what's happening in Gaza, as it now is doing in Lebanon. We have an agreement with Lebanon after Hamas, after Hezbollah was destroyed, right? But every time there is a slight violation of this agreement, the Israeli army responds. So I think they would try to preserve this right. This is not written in the 20 points, but I think they would have a right. They would try to preserve this right to respond, and not to let what we call the monster to be developed again below. I mean, this was what happened before October 7th. Things were overlooked, and we didn't see how Hamas was gaining more and more power and managed to deceive everybody in Israel, from the government to the IDF to the intelligence to everyone. Yeah.
And outside of Israel, to university students in the United States who really believe that Hamas is a great organization just trying to help the people, which they have no idea. We talked about what before our session started. We talked about kind of the weird kind of paradox and oxymoron, if it will, when you have people who are very tolerant in their minds, and they're very open to, let's say, the LGBT community, and then they hold up signs, rainbow flags, and LGBT signs along with Free Palestine. And the reality is those things can't exist in the same space. And homosexual people, gay people lesbians are thrown off a roof, stoned, drowned, all different ways according to Sharia law. So no one really knows that. So my question to you is, how do you get the real information out when you have organizations like the UN and very liberal news organizations not telling the whole story? What can we do?
This is a challenge, a great challenge. And I'm always saying the Palestinians have the greatest PR. They know how to reach out to vast communities, to the international community, to everyone in the world. I think that one reason for that is that, fortunately, I must say, Israel has become much stronger than Palestinians throughout the years that since it was established and thriving and everything. And so Israel is considered the strong, and people tend to sympathize with those who are considered weak. So I guess this is one reason why Palestinians receive so much attention and manage to attract public opinion in their favor. But yes, it is very hard to explain that they're not always the weak, because what happened in October 7 was that we, unfortunately, the Israelis and the Jews were the weak. And still the world cannot see that. Why is that so? I am sorry to say that there probably is still deep anti-Semitism in the world. I cannot think otherwise. I think October 7 just proves that. And I think that whatever we do and try to explain our cause, if it falls on deaf ears, I'm not sure any intelligent or successful campaign would be efficient. Sorry to say that. But I don't, how to say that? Give up, sorry. Yeah.
You can't. And I think, one of the things that you're against is a United Nations that has a history of very anti-Israel. I'll just start with that. Calling any leader of Israel at the time a war criminal, having the International Court of Justice sign warrants for Israeli leaders, when you have state-sponsored terrorism allowed to have YouTube channels. The irony in it, I think there's some truth to it, that going back to the scriptures I'm reading in the Old Testament, that Israel, the people of Israel, will always have these trials, but they always have their faith and their strength. And my prayer is that there will be peace there. So as a mother, as a professor now at Liberty, I know that your heart mourns with people who also experience terrible things. Tell us about average people in Israel. Do they also want people in Gaza to be able to have good, peaceful lives and good lives? Or do they lump all of the people in Gaza as bad people?
Yes, it's good that you mentioned that. And I should have said that, and it's actually the way I do feel, and I do feel very sorry for the suffering in Gaza, and I don't overlook it, and I don't think that it's something that every person deserves, not at all. I think every person deserves a right to life in dignity, and I'm happy that maybe this opportunity is now given to everyone in Gaza, hopefully everyone in Gaza, and I also think that this is the major opinion in Israel. Maybe you can find, of course, you can always find minority opinion and people who are motivated by hatred, as everywhere you can find those people. But I think that the general public, and this is why also we had this immense movement that, of the civilian population that went out to the streets, gathered in what is called the Hostages Square. I mean, it of course, it is not the original name of the square, and thousands and maybe more than thousands of people were going out there every Saturday night to demand the end of the war, the bringing back of the hostages. And this is not only in order to bring back the hostages, but also, I think, as a belief that war is not wanted, and actually we do want peace for everyone. And I must say that in our prayers, we pray always, I mean, in a very important prayer that is said 3 times a day, we pray that God would spread upon us the canopy of peace, of His peace. So I believe that peace is truly entrenched in Israel, in Judaism, and in Israel as well.
Yeah, and in Numbers chapter 6, I think it's verse 26, where God says, and may peace be upon you. That's what He blesses people with peace. Peace is a blessing, and you have to work hard for it. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting to the end of our program. It's been my honor to have Dr. Moodrick-Even Khen, a senior lecturer from Ariel University, Israel, who is a Fulbright scholar at Liberty University. And thank you so much. Our prayers continue to be with everyone in that region. And we hope that God will bring peace, not only there, but so many other places. Dr. Khen, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
In a world full of noise, clarity is power. Stay informed, stay aware, stay top of mind.